Good morning, Monday morning, and I've got a lovely message from Our Lady. I say lovely, but it's actually all about suffering, but it's still lovely. My children, how much I love you and how much I desire you to become great saints through offering your lives on earth to Jesus and purifying your souls through every type of trial and suffering. My loved ones, suffering is an opportunity to grow in holiness when you accept it in a spirit of surrender and humility. You must not be surprised when God allows great sufferings in your lives, despite offering Him your lives. God does not spare you suffering, but will protect you and guide you in the suffering. Just as doctors treating patients with cancer with different therapies like chemotherapy, God too treats the suffering of your souls with His therapy, which will too cause you much suffering. God knows how much you can handle, just like the doctor knows how much a patient can handle. My children, expect suffering, accept suffering, and learn to suffer patiently and humbly, and it will become for you an enormous source of joy and hope. Again, I remind you to read the lives of the saints who are not spared enormous sufferings despite their close union with God. Well, you know what? I always love the messages of Our Lady, not because they're always easy to hear, but because they're always so honest. Our Lady is wonderful like that. She doesn't sugarcoat things. She doesn't say, oh, it'll all be okay, my little chickens, you'll all get to heaven without the least bit of suffering. No, she's totally honest. She's totally real. She's not trying to hide the ways of God. She's not trying to hide the pain of suffering, but she's here to tell us about it, to reassure us, and to walk with us. And so it starts off on a very, very positive note. How much I love you and I desire you to become great saints through offering your lives on earth to Jesus and purifying your souls through every type of trial and suffering. So in other words, she's saying is I desire my children for you guys to become great saints. However, the way that happens is through trials and through sufferings. So don't look at the trials, don't look at the sufferings, but look at the great saint. Look at the end result. And you know, for any of us who see people that are excelling in a certain area, say for example, I go to the gym and I see guys at the gym, they've got crazy big muscles or something. And why? Because they keep lifting heavier and heavier weights, they keep stretching themselves, they keep on going. It's the same thing if you see the Olympics or you see Olympic swimmers or Olympic athletes. How do they get to that place? Because they keep on going, they keep on going, they keep on pushing limits, pushing boundaries. And so they get to the place of excellence. Now, obviously, we all know that bodybuilding and winning an Olympic medal isn't exactly a priority. But Our Lady wants us to win a different sort of Olympic medal, if you like, and it's an Olympic medal for God. She wants us to become great saints. And so she says, suffering is an opportunity to grow in holiness when you accept it in a spirit of surrender and humility. Now, that's a key thing there. You see, suffering and trials, as I often say to people, including myself, they either make you better or they make you bitter. So when you're going through suffering, often I find suffering as like an x-ray. So say, for example, I've got no suffering of a day and I can say, Jesus, I love you. Oh, the life is so wonderful. Thank you for the birds and thank you for the sky. Isn't it all wonderful? It's quite easy to say that on a good day. But say a day that, I don't know, I have lots of sufferings and trials and people have been gossiping about me or talking about me. I've heard all sorts of things, or I feel lonely or something like that, or have aches and pains or who knows what. Well, on those days, is it as easy for me to say, oh, Jesus, thank you for this wonderful world, I love you? Or am I going to slip into, oh, why do I have this? Why do I have that? Why do I deserve this? What's the... So these are the opportunities, because the suffering, if you like, purges out our the things in our soul that aren't of God. And when we're suffering, we can see our unholy bits. We can see our moaning, our groaning, our criticizing. We can see maybe at times we might be prone to using a bit of bad language or temptations and stuff. And so I always say, well, this is wonderful because Jesus is purging me. And he's squeezing me, if you like, and the suffering then is causing my ugly bits to come out. But it's great, because then I can go off to Mass, I can go off to confession, I can go off and get more healing prayer for those wounds, and so I can grow. So that's what Our Lady has taught me over the years, is to see suffering and to see all these things as an opportunity of growth, an opportunity to grow in self-knowledge, an opportunity to grow in holiness, and an opportunity to grow in mercy for other people. So she goes on to say, you must not be surprised when God allows great sufferings in your lives despite offering him your lives. So what does she mean there? Well, of course, there are some people and they think, Lord Jesus and Mary, I offer you my life today, and St. Michael the Archangel around me, and I'm going to have the best week ever, and I want to have a bit of suffering. And Our Lady's kind of smiling, saying, hello, that's not quite how it works. Yes, I will be with you, and Jesus will be with you, and St. Michael will be with you, but there will be sufferings, there will be trials. The gospel is full of sufferings, full of trials. We'll be with you in the trials to keep you strong, to keep you focused, to keep you in unity with Jesus. So if you're looking for a life without suffering, well then, sorry, but you're not looking for Jesus, because it doesn't work like that. However, if you're looking for a joyful life with suffering, sign up, you make a good Catholic. Okay? So God does not spare your suffering, will protect you and guide you in the suffering. And then I love this example, because recently a friend of mine had been going through chemotherapy. And basically Jesus is saying, and Our Lady is saying, that the doctors know, for example, how much chemotherapy to give a patient, what they can do, how weak the patient can get, how much the patient can suffer. They can monitor the heart rate, they monitor all the rest, and they know when to stop. And then they know when the person needs to rest a bit, and then they know when to go for another round of chemo. And so Our Lady is using the same example. The chemotherapy we have, or the cancer that we have, it's our sinfulness, it's our pride, it's our ego, it's our stubbornness, it's our lust, it's all these things. And God knows that all that needs to get purified by his sort of laser therapy, love therapy, Jesus therapy, grace therapy. But that happens through trials, through sufferings, through breaking down our ego, through breaking down our pride. And it happens also at times through humiliating us, things going wrong and all sorts of stuff. But yet Jesus is saying, Mary is saying that they know how much we can take. They know when to stop, just like that doctor knows when to stop with the cancer patient. And so Our Lady is asking us to trust in Jesus and to trust in the process of suffering, and so to be humble about it. And so she says, my children, expect suffering. Now, it's much easier if you expect it, by the way. When you have the weather forecast and someone says it's going to be raining later in the day, well, now it's much easier. You're not expecting a sunny day, so you're going to be prepared for the rain. So it's the same thing. If someone says, well, look, you're going to be following Jesus, he's going to be with you all the time, but there will be sufferings. There will be great trials, but he will always be with you. It's much easier. You're expecting it. It's not because you've done anything wrong. It's just, it is how it is. So expect suffering. Accept the suffering. When the suffering comes, don't try to run away from it and say, okay, accept it. Say, okay, this is a trial. Jesus is allowing this. It will pass. And in the meantime, I just accept it and make the most of it and realize and pray for myself and pray for other people and be joyful in the middle of it. So accept suffering. Learn to suffer patiently and humbly. In other words, when you're going through it, learn to go through it. Just like I haven't had babies, but just like a woman who's having a baby, she has to learn how to have the baby. And afterwards, she knows that she'll have a wonderful baby. So it's the same thing. Learn to suffer patiently and humbly, and it will become for you an enormous source of joy and hope. So in other words, through the suffering, you'll be realizing, wow, God is using this suffering to purge my soul of some ugliness. He's using this suffering to help souls in purgatory. He's using this suffering to purify my soul more, so in heaven I'll even be closer to Jesus. And yes, even though it doesn't feel nice, it's going to have wonderful, absolutely awesome, supercalifragilistic benefits. So you can stay joyful in an inner type of a joy, even though physically you can be in agony at times and not feel like smiling at all. So she goes, again, I remind you to read the lives of the saints who were not spared enormous sufferings despite their close union with God. So that's true. Read the lives of all the saints, and it was full of every sort of a suffering, but they had great joy. Why? Because their eyes were on the prize, and the prize is Jesus. So on that note, keep your eye on the prize, keep your eye on Jesus. When suffering comes, keep on going, keep on smiling, keep on laughing and joking inside, even though it's hard. It will pass. Make full use of the sacraments of confession, of prayer, of Eucharistic adoration, of Mary, of Our Lady, of the Rosary. Think of all the lives of the saints and think of the absolutely wonderful things God can do with your suffering and is doing with your suffering, even though it feels horrible and ugly. So on that note, I'm not going to wish you a week full of suffering. That would be awful. But I am going to wish you a week full of joy. And if and when you have suffering in the week, keep on smiling, keep on rejoicing, and learn, as Our Lady said, to suffer joyfully, humbly, patiently, knowing that it has purpose, it has reason, and that this is how Jesus treats the people that he's picking and choosing and growing and picking out to be big, beautiful roses in heaven. So have a great week and talk to you soon.